Chat, what would you put the chances are of at her being a feminist? What would you put the chances at of her being, what else do we reckon? A body positivity advocate? What do you put the chances of it at that she believes that Rittenhouse hunted down and killed innocent black men? What do you reckon, chat? What do you reckon? Let's have a little watch. This is 17 minutes of Kent State students, quote unquote, voicing outrage over Rittenhouse appearance on campus. Now, I don't know what Rittenhouse is doing there. I assume some sort of talk. We'll find out. Here's a crowd of people, incredible to see, chat, a crowd of people entirely who do not know anything about the story that they're chanting about. None of these people know what happened with Rittenhouse, or they're joining the crowd and lying about it. But let's assume for a second they're not just lying. None of them know what happened, and yet here they are out in force against him, calling him a murderer. Bear in mind that if, like, isn't there like a major feminist activist who was also accused of, or actually maybe convicted of murder, who's still, you know, relatively popular, still gets talking gigs? Like, bear in mind, they don't actually oppose murderers. In case it wasn't clear, if there was a murderer come to give a talk on, like, the criminal justice system, on how his victims experience his murder, on how he felt about the murders, many of them would attend, the rest of them would ignore it. The reason they're protesting is because the right wing likes him. And actually, moreover, that's the reason the press lit this story up. The reason they're protesting is because the press lit it up. Because the press persuaded them through manufactured consensus that everyone's doing this because this is a man it's okay to unambiguously hate. Almost none of them have thought about why they hate him. They're just doing it because their friends are, because they want to feel moral, and this is free red meat that the press has thrown them as, look, just hate this guy and you can be moral. That's it. It's so simplistic. But this is how sort of public opinion moves. This is normal. Things do change over time. And you don't, this is still a tiny portion of the population. So you don't have to worry too much about it. But hey, this is, our side has people like this too. So let's face it, anyone protesting doesn't know what happened on that day. Now, this queue here, is this, like, that guy's wearing an American flag. There's quite a lot of white people in the queue. I don't see any blacks or browns. One or two women, but mostly men. This is probably the queue to see Rittenhouse. Good. Like, bear in mind, yeah, he has detractors, but he has a lot of supporters too.
So we're out here on Kent State University campus ahead of Kyle Rittenhouse giving a speech. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you think about Kyle visiting campus?
Well, Kyle visiting any campus is completely inappropriate because he's a murderer, but Kyle visiting Kent State specifically is really just a slap in the face to all of the people who've been mourning May 4th and the history that happened here. It doesn't seem like the university really cares.
Yeah.
So are you saying that anyone that has murdered someone should never give a talk at a university campus? Do you not think that might reduce the potential for someone interesting talking? Like, this is a minor argument to repel what she's saying, but the premise, I just doubt the premise. I completely doubt the premise. They're out in force here to repel a murderer, but would they be for any other murderer? Of course not. Unless, again, it was a, like, big media furore. No, it's what was it, like, Minute of Hate. That's what this is. Same mechanic that all well identified and wrote about.
I think you mentioned that he's a murderer. Some of his defenders would say that he was acquitted on charges. Have you heard that defense of him? What do you make of that?
Yeah, so I have heard the defense that he, because he was acquitted, that he shouldn't be facing any consequences, but that doesn't erase what he did. And it wasn't a fair trial. A lot of trials aren't, especially when it comes to white men.
Yep. Like Derek Chauvin's trial wasn't. Meatman says I could fix her. I bet some of you reckon you could fix her. I mean, she's not wrong, but she's wrong completely. Now, literally speaking, she's not wrong, but unfortunately, yeah, it's completely opposite. They tried to railroad him into a murder conviction when the facts of the case did not bear it out. Now, my fair lady, did you see the footage? I wanted to ask her, did you see the footage? She might even say yes if she didn't. But if you ask, did you see the footage? Did you know what the people that he shot were doing just before he shot them? You just ask her some basic questions about the case. She's going to start floundering, and she's going to start redirecting back to he's a murderer, and basically justice system supports. Yeah, but do you know what actually happened? Like, what happened just before he shot the guy in the chest? What happened just before he shot the guy in the chest? She would not know. She would literally not know. You could ask her, do you know how many he killed? She would probably not know that either. She might say, well, any number is, and some bullshit to redirect. If you ask her, do you know what the race of the people that he killed was? She would say, well, killing is wrong. Again, she doesn't know. And if you say, do you know how many of the people he killed were pedophiles? Now that's a question that's a question with some chest hair. She might walk away at that point. She might walk away in disgust. But if she didn't, she would say, no, what kind of a question is that? Of course, it doesn't matter, etc., some bullshit. The interviewer, if he's a diligent investigative journalist who is focusing on objectivity and not advocacy or activism, which I'm not saying is wrong either way, but if that's what he is, would merely ask these questions. He'd ask hard questions. Not because he has a political bent to push, but because he, as an interviewer, you should ask hard questions. You should challenge someone, get some interesting answers. In the interest of providing journalistic information to the audience. But if he was going to be a little bit activistic, he could ask her all these questions where she doesn't know the answer. And then after it's clear to her that she has no idea what she's talking about, he can fill in some of the blanks. That's the kind of thing that may begin to change her mind. But to be honest, the reinforcement of the one around her and the moral impediment of the moral benefit of being able to just hate someone, so beneficial to people that she probably wouldn't. But that's a worthwhile shot. If you demonstrate they know nothing about what they're talking about, and then you tell them the facts of the case. Not a bad way of doing it.
Yeah. One of the victims who he said he was defending himself against was actually here earlier today on campus. What do you think about him coming at the same time when Kyle is?
That's really powerful and probably, incredibly brave, because I couldn't imagine being in the same space as the person who attacked you. And then for them to go and spin it.
Yeah, neither could Rittenhouse. That's why he had to defend himself. I don't know which of the three crooks, variously violent and philic, that Rittenhouse defended himself from is attending, but I would give a pretty good chance that it's Grosskreutz, the bicepless man, the man whose bicep was vaporized for trying to attack Rittenhouse, who had a gun as well, by the way, just wasn't as quick on it, because he has been loud after all this stuff. He's been whining. Seen him in the news a few times. Were the other two killed? I forget how many of them were actually died from it. But I knew that the guy with the skateboard was shot in the chest and died. But I thought the other one didn't die. But either way, yeah, both self-defense. But I would bet Grosskreutz. Got to, okay. Are we counting? Because there were four, weren't there? There was Rosenbaum, the guy with the chain. That was earlier. And then there were three as he was running away. Or were there two as he was running away? I forget if it was three or four. So it was Grosskreutz then. Yeah, more than 3 attacked him. Yeah, okay, so I think it was 4 in total. So I think 2 might have survived engagements with him. Oh, was there a black guy? Okay, is that man? Huber, someone named person in Grosskreutz. I think Huber the skateboard guy who got shot for it. Huber skateboard, yeah. Thought so. Okay, so yeah, I bet it's Grosskreutz. He's been loud. Oh, we have to show this. Meat Bun, thank you for reminding me. Motch, have you seen? Are you back, by the way, Motch? Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Have you seen this video?
What is it?
Hold on a sec. This is during the trial with Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse and his lawyer are on a video call with Grosskreutz here. And then this just happened. And this is one of the greatest moments of that year. Ready? Are you watching closely? Ready? Ready? Ready?
Rittenhouse, just like me, for real. I could not be held responsible for my facial expression if that was happening to me in real life.
Once again, let me make it clear that shit like this is the closest thing that exists to evidence of a good and interested God. The George Floyd memorial being struck by lightning, literally the finest evidence for the Christian God that has ever existed. This is pretty up there. Let's watch it again. Serves him right. He is a piece of work, this Grosskreutz. Now I can't remember, chat. I don't think he was the was he? I think that was Huber. Was Grosskreutz the burglar? Who did he have a gun when he was a felon? I can't remember. But he was something. I believe that Rosenbaum, the first guy before the chase, he was the actually. I can't remember exactly. Okay, yeah. Gage was the convicted wife beater and thief. Yeah. Rosenbaum was the yeah. I remember that. What a funny name. Huber was the domestic abuser. Okay, there might be some confusion there because unless there were 2 domestic abusers, Skateboard was also a yeah. Huber was an assaulter. The arm guy had a bit. This Grosskreutz is the arm guy. He did have a gun, and Rittenhouse vaporized his bicep so he couldn't use it, which was a good idea in that kind of situation. Grosskreutz, there's some confusion about. So interesting. Okay. Well, I wonder if you addressed this student. Yeah. Did you know that that 1 or 2 of them were wife beaters? The people that he allegedly killed. Well, again, she would say, well, it doesn't necessarily justify killing them. Okay, but what if they attacked you? Would you, and you had a gun? Would you shoot them? She might say, no, I would try to, call the police and maybe maim them, but not kill them. Of course, she doesn't know what it's like. Neither do I. But I at least know what people who know what it's like say it's like.
That you attacked them and make you seem like you were the bad guy. Yeah, it's incredibly brave to do that, and I wish them all of the most power and peace that they can have.
Now, what do you mean by making it look like they attacked him? What do you mean by making it look like? Because here's the thing, dear. There's, like, decent video evidence of them attacking him out of nowhere. Possible to fake, sort of, but no. I mean, there's multiple angles as well from multiple independent sources. I don't know. Kind of hard to buy your narrative, to be honest. It's just like, yeah, she believes what she needs to believe. She's read the articles that spin it in a very specific wording of propaganda to produce this effect. She is one of many people who just don't know what happened, but have been spoon-fed red meat to allow her to do a minute of hate. In this case, much more than a minute. Yeah, Meat Bun, the whole, like, crossing state lines and having a gun in the first place, none of which was true. That obviously he had a gun, but he was perfectly allowed to. And it turns out, yeah, it was right that he did. Good. Because he was attacked for no reason.
There's a long line of your peers here waiting to get in. What do you make of so many students here interested in his speech?
Yeah, I was really not. I mean, I was kind of expecting there to be a good crowd, but I was not expecting this size. And it's really disappointing to know that there are so many people who agree with him and believe in his values. And again, that's an assumption. Hopefully, some of these people are going in to infiltrate the event, but it seems like for the most part, these people are here to support him, and that's really upsetting.
You said his values. What do you think Kyle Rittenhouse's values are?
Well, if you ask me that question specifically, I guess I don't think he has any values whatsoever, especially.
Basically, exactly the kind of thing I was saying earlier that she would say. Like, to be fair, credit to her for admitting she has no idea. I would have expected her to like redirect to something else and say like, well, like the people that support him seem to be mostly white supremacists. She should have gone with that angle, to be honest. Misdirect, don't answer the question, but still like make your bullshit argument. But to be fair to her, she's saying, well, I guess I don't know. I guess it didn't have any values. Yeah, I was thinking when she said it, like, okay, he's not a political figure. He survived being attacked because he had a gun. That's why he's famous. So why? Okay, well, never mind.
Especially if you are capable of hurting somebody in the capacity that he did, and in a protest where people were speaking their minds, and it's a.
My dear, they were burning shit down. There's footage of the fires, and they were looting as well, of course. Speaking their mind. You mean by skateboarding him to the back of the head? Again, attacked him first. Like, do they think that he just went there, was like, ooh, leftists, bang, 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 and only managed to kill 2 of them? Do they think that's what happened? They probably do think that's what happened. It was mostly peaceful, except for all the, violence that almost all of them were involved in. Like, most of the people in attendance, it seems, were criminals. This is the thing. Black Lives Matter was less a protest movement and more excuse for rabid criminals to go and loot under the cover of chaos. Yes, the daytime protests were mostly peaceful. Come nighttime, it was just barbarianism.
Appalling, and yeah, I guess I don't think he has any values whatsoever. Probably really traditional ones.
Many people view him as heroic.
Okay, hold on a second, my dear. None whatsoever, but really traditional ones. Well, one of the traditional values from your constitution is the Second Amendment, which essentially gives you the right to defend yourself with a gun. And that is what happened. And would you ever consider defending yourself, my dear, with or without a gun? That's what Carl had to consider within mere seconds between being brutally attacked by random leftist protesters, criminals, and either possibly dying to them or opening fire and surviving.
What do you think of that?
I don't think anybody who takes somebody's life can be considered a hero, especially if they were taken in vain and for no good reason.
What about the guy that killed Hitler? I would love to ask her that and just hear her say, well, yeah, he was really bad, so I guess the guy that killed Hitler could be considered a hero. But yeah, like, even then, like, that is not what your opinion would be in the right circumstances. There are villains in the world, at least in your eyes, who you would consider it right to take the life of. If someone killed Donald Trump, she might say she doesn't support that, but I don't think she would. I think she would support it. Even if she didn't say she did, she would internally support it. She might have the good nature to know that she shouldn't say she does, but internally she would. Nighthawk says this woman has the morality of a 3-year-old. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much all of these do. She might be the best of them. Actually, of this crowd, she might be the most turned on of this entire group. Motch, would you like to speak briefly to your experience of being around a lot of women of this age? How familiar is this scene?
I know a lot of uni-age women, and they do genuinely all talk and act like this. When they're not using therapy speak in a very casual 8 a.m. conversation, they tend to do this thing where, I mean, it's sort of just a woman moment, if you'll forgive the term. But women tend to get their opinion, like what is fact and what is true to a lot of women just tends to be what you can get away with believing in any given social circumstance. So what is fact and true and objective just comes from what is popular to believe among the social circles.
Yeah.
And what it's popular to believe among the social circles is whatever's circulating as a good Instagram graphic this week. And the thing is, they all have these beliefs, but none of them have any real knowledge on it on any deeper level than an Instagram graphic. Unless you meet the actual crazy ones. 1 in every 100 will be an actual crazy, and they will be true believers, and they will be able to give you like a 100-page document on their insane ideology. But 95% of the crowd is just going to be people who believe it because their friends believe it. Yeah, as Jack says, I support the current thing.
I will give a small defense there that whilst I'm sure what you're saying is true, I think that's more so a normie problem than a women problem. And of course, it's obviously going to be younger women, like younger normies, especially around this age is at the prime time for it, and probably more so with women than with men. You're going to get this very conformity-based reasoning where what they focus on as their primary means for determining what they believe is what's normal. And normal is another way of saying what's popular as well. These are the kinds of people in society who, they just sort of like move, and it's a quantity thing. Again, you guys know my position on the will of the people being valuable, and looking at people like this and hearing about how normies think, you might think, how can you possibly say that? Because it's a matter of quantity, and these things move slowly. And they sometimes move in very much the wrong direction. Part of the reason our opponent's propaganda is so effective is because it can manipulate these kinds of people. But it's also going to inoculate us over time. And whilst there are normies on this side, there are also normies on the other side, who these guys and the intellectuals above them would view as just as detestable that they can vote. But it's lucky that it's not just the intellectuals that can vote, because there's far more leftist intellectuals these days than right-wing. So at least that's something. But these things do change gradually, even if it looks obscene and horrible today. These things do change gradually. It's sort of like it's just sort of like a buffer. But living among them, I wouldn't recommend it if you care about the truth. If you can possibly avoid discussing politics with them.
Reason whatsoever. The idea that this was an act of self-defense is really just. It's inappropriate, and it's a laugh in the face to the legal system and to the victims.
Why do you think?
Why? Yeah, I mean, he's asking.
So many people think he's heroic.
No, you should have asked. You should have asked her why she thinks the self-defense argument is a slap in the face or is wrong. Again, she's just saying that. She knows that people have said it's self-defense, and she knows which side she's on, so she just has to find a way to just find the words to express that she doesn't like the thing. She doesn't know why. She doesn't know anything about it. She doesn't know why they think it's self-defense. She doesn't care. She doesn't need to look into it. It's not her priority. She, like other normies, literally does not care what is true. She cares, as exactly as Motch says, she cares what she can get away with thinking. She cares what the most socially effective thing for her to think is. The thing that allows her to continue to rely on her existing friend groups, her existing family structure, her existing emotional infrastructure in general. Whatever gives her the most ease in continuing to rely on those, she will believe. And don't worry, there's plenty of people on the other side of this as well. It's not all doom and gloom, but there are lots like this as well.
That's a really good question. I really wish I knew, because it baffles me. I think about that every day, that it doesn't make sense to me. Just because this doesn't align with what I believe in, it doesn't make sense to me that anybody could believe in this stuff. The people.
Have you tried asking them? Never mind.
That find him heroic, obviously believe the same things as he does, and again, it's just really upsetting and disturbing, and it makes this place more violent.
Absolutely.
Do you believe that a decent portion of your nation is in favor of random acts of murder? Do you believe that? Now, some might point out that actually, yes, there is a portion of quote-unquote Americans who do believe that. And I suppose that sort of puts the idea to shame. But we're talking about people that are actually Americans. people who are much more than third generation, let's say, Americans. And the notion that she would believe that fellow civilized Americans, working class, middle class, even upper class as well, would believe that random acts of murder are a good thing. It's like, when I approach this situation, do I approach it by saying, this woman believes that every single right-winger should be beaten to death by a crowd of protesters, mostly black ones, and that they shouldn't be allowed to defend themselves?
Flip that.
I could make that assumption, and there probably are some on the left that genuinely do want that, but I don't assume they all do. I don't approach it in that way. I approach it with more nuanced psychoanalysis, and it is demeaning psychoanalysis, but I think it's true. So it's worth noting, chat. This is an indictment against tribalism. Your opponents are people, and the world is very, very complicated. There are ways, plausible ways, that people who mean well can end up with really stupid beliefs and end up being quite hateful as well in so doing. And interpret mean well how you like, but this woman is not fundamentally evil. She is just someone else's pawn of ultimately an influence that is built by fundamentally evil people, but she's not fundamentally evil. The people around her aren't. They think what they're doing is good. They like doing good. And granted, some of them just like being there, but they promote each other based on doing good, based on hating the right things, hating bad things and liking good things. So that is at least the right gradient, the right direction. Thing is, they've just been lied to about what's good and what's bad. They're fundamentally good, but this is a lesson in how you turn that intent against the truth and against actually good people in society. All you need is total control of the press and incredibly devious methods to manipulate specifically normies. Kieran says, something tells me if she were being assaulted by two kiddie fiddlers and a domestic abuser, she'd want a guy with a rifle to help her. Yes, she would. Expecting that level of thinking from a 2020s chick is wishful thinking, unfortunately. Hashtag not all. But yeah, for this one for sure. Motch and 8-Bit and Clover, if you're there. Curious, do you reckon that the world would be a better place if all of these women on the screen now, and everyone was protesting against Rittenhouse here, was instead in a kitchen? 8-Bit says no. Why not? Why not 8-Bit? The man, maybe, because they can't cook. Well, they do less harm cooking and trying to learn how to cook. Why do you say no, 8-Bit? Are you in support of this protest? Couldn't afford that much arson, says Nazi. Well, the amount that they're supporting Black Lives Matter, you might get more arson from that. Clever says they need to be in the damn kitchen to learn or burn the house down around them. Yeah. 8-Bit's feminist arc, you hate to see it. Yeah, you do hate to see it. It's a shame.
No. The reason why I say no is because this bitch is more likely to burn water than to actually boil water.
Yeah, but at least if she's in the kitchen.
It's totally useless. Totally useless. Guys, I know you can say, like, oh, I can fix her. No, you can't. Let them die off.
I can fix her.
This is the loudest I've ever heard 8-Bit. Next bit of insanity.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I really appreciate your questions. They were really incredible and
Thank
insightful.
you. There are many people, I mean...
I wish they'd been a bit more incredible, to be honest. He could have done a lot more without being biased. But still, they weren't too bad. Honestly, maybe this guy is trying to be an unbiased investigative journalist. And honestly, fine. I think maybe society could do with a bit more investigative journalists who have a bias towards sanity. But failing that, sure, like, yeah, be balanced. I think the problem is, right, what I'm trying to say here is if all journalists, almost all, were unbiased investigative journalists, that'd be fine. The problem is that the vast majority of quote-unquote journalists are activist bloggers with a big budget, a big name to promote their stuff. So simply having unbiased journalists, it's the ideal, and perhaps it's the principal thing to do, but perhaps it's not useful enough to justify that. Not sure. I say do either, as you see fit. But don't feel too bad about being a bit of an activist at the same time if that's your bag. If you think you can do better doing that, don't feel too bad about doing that. But don't then call yourself an unbiased investigative journalist. Don't call yourself a reporter or something else which sounds unbiased. You could call yourself a pundit journalist or something like that. I'm a pundit, but not a journalist. I would never go to these places. Imagine the smell. This is just down the hill here, talking to a woman that looks even more the stereotype than the previous one.
A lot of your peers here on campus coming to see him. Some people view him as a hero. What do you think of him getting such a big reaction, and what do you think of the people who think of him as a hero?
I mean, I think that they're wrong. I don't think he is a hero. I think that people villainize sects of humanity due to their race, due to their ethnicity, due to their sexual orientation, due to their gender.
Yeah, just like white people, right? And they do that like you're doing here. I mean, again, what basis do you have to oppose him? Oh, yes, but you don't know the facts of the case, my dear. Yeah, he's not a murderer, you see. Not just legally, but actually. Again, as Matthias says, political ideologies, yeah. Yeah, do you think right-wingers are ever marginalized in today's society? The whole thing, this is another thing that they take from Mao, the idea of the I can't remember what it's called exactly, but like the consistent revolution, where even the people who are directly obeying the establishment, directly obeying them, have to believe every generation that they are the underdogs rebelling against some alleged conservative majority. In the US, and in the Western world in general, culturally speaking, conservatives are marginalized, probably much more than non-whites are marginalized. Even when conservatives have the majority of the US House and have the presidency, as they have variously over the last few years, they are still culturally marginalized. Every single corporation, with almost no exceptions, if they have a choice of which side to take, will side with the left. Now, that's actually changing a bit. You see less of them have, the pride flags in their bios, less of them virtue signal about that kind of thing. And according to at least Wes, who I've heard talk about this, the ESG money is starting to dry up. And with the Bud Light boycott, they're all getting a bit scared. And now hopefully with the North Face boycott as well, they're getting a bit more scared. So I think that is changing. But culturally speaking, it has been the case for at least 10 years that conservatives are in fact marginalized. And Rittenhouse is a conservative. Yeah, she's right. She has no idea she's right there.
And because of that, they'll see villains as heroes. They think that Kyle did a service to the country by protecting, in air quotes definitely, the white community and the upper class community, people in power from...
There was no one upper class there. The place he went to was a bit of a shithole, especially because it was literally filled with a crowd of violent criminals, among them pedophiles. Exactly, Jack, a working class neighborhood. Now, but what she's going to say here is exactly what I just said she would say. She thinks that as a white woman opposing the quote-unquote white order of society, that she is an underdog, rebellious activist. That she is righting the wrongs. But if you look at the situation, my dear, we'll find, in fact, the power is rather balanced in a different direction, as evidenced by your very self opposing a man whose only action was to defend himself on that day. Now, I am curious. Sadly, he's not here. I was going to ask if this was sort of Wes's bread and butter back in the day, because she sure looks like it. It seems that some things never change. As Felix says, Kenosha is a small town with no upper class, you crayon-haired twat. But I understand what she means. I'm a whisperer to some extent. I know it's why much and I get never mind. I know that she means defending them indirectly in spirit because he was a white man who killed, she doesn't know who he killed, but he killed people who were against the white order run by these upper class of white people. She's not talking about Kenosha. She has no idea what Kenosha is. She is talking about her pet ideology, her pet worldview that says that white men are evil and control everything. Simplistic, wrong, and highly abusable ideology. And she just slots Rittenhouse into that. She just thinks Rittenhouse is a pawn of these people who just likes killing people that rebel against it. She probably thinks it's some sort of anarcho-terror, or just like anarcho-fascism, she might call it. Are you there, Motch?
I am.
Do you have any response to anything I just said?
Times change, people change. Weird-haired hippie chicks who don't know dick about shit stay eternal.
I suppose so. Chat, it appears she missed it. I'm off the hook. Let's continue.
The people of America honestly standing up and being able to say what we want in a way that is heard. I mean, the protests after the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and countless others during the Black Lives Matter kind of protest boom in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, interesting timing. I'm not going to go into it in great detail now, but my dear, George Floyd was not killed. He killed himself with a fentanyl overdose, as the evidence clearly shows, but you didn't see the evidence. To be fair, in that case, it was very well hidden from you. It took us a while to actually get access to it because of leaks. But in this case, with Rittenhouse, the video evidence was, as far as I know, available fairly early on. Well, certainly well publicized once it was available, but you didn't see it, did you? You probably just saw one article and then later heard that he'd been exonerated. Zenman says, Uzalu is too charitable. Most of those women support what they support because they get social power from that, not different from the church lady that said that D&D was devil worship. Zen, that's one of the points I've been making. That doesn't disagree with me. They get social power from it, but underlying that, the reason some things get people social power is because it makes them feel morally good. Like, ultimately, it is about moral good. It's just very misdirected. They get social power from appearing morally good. That's how Western white European societies have always worked, for at least for a long time. And others as well, but mostly these. That's why virtue signaling works. But are they doing it cynically for power? Not knowingly. Ultimately, yes, but it's directed towards good things. Of course, it's being manipulated, so in this case, it's for a bad thing. So I don't think we disagree, Zen Man. There's just a bit more nuance to it. Cocktails Console says, look at her hair. You know every opinion she has before she opens her mouth. Her hair, her makeup, her everything else, even her stance. Maybe the stance is just nervousness, actually. Be fair to her on that. Yeah, Zenman, I get where you're coming from, but consider this. She is not smart enough to understand the requirements and the movements needed for social power. If she is a psychopath, which I don't think she is, then I'm with you that she's deliberately pursuing power. Even then, some amount of that is going to be instinctive only, especially if they're low IQ. If she's a high IQ psychopath, which she is not high IQ, then yeah, they're pursuing it cynically, pursuing power cynically in all the cases. But no, I think very simply here, she is pursuing feeling good about herself, feeling that she is on the good side, the right side of history, as they often say, and not stopping herself doing so because it produces a social power effect. And then, of course, getting deeper and deeper into leftist circles by doing so, because they're the only people that will actually believe this insanity. 8-Bit Vicky says, what if those girls are instructed in what to say, coached? 8-Bit once again trying to defend women as newly minted feminist 8-Bit Picky, trying to defend women from my savage onslaughts and accusing them merely of being just paid actors doing a job. Nothing wrong with that, right? But yeah, what if they were coached? Honestly, 8-Bit, they wouldn't need to be. There are people like this. And if these aren't others are?
We really saw a lot of progress made because of that, and I think
Did we?
obviously there would be a kind of counteract to that.
Did we? What progress did we see? What we saw, my dear, is that some police departments got gutted, crime spiked, and then in most cases, they put back some police, but not all of them. What progress did we see? I suppose she would give a wishy-washy answer, and to be fair, that's not always wrong. I have given answers that are not exactly quantifiable on how something helps, the whole hearts and minds thing. And maybe the Black Lives Matter thing did win quote-unquote hearts and minds for the left, but I think it may have turned just as many people off, given what they saw. So even from her perspective, I don't think it really made any progress. What it did was create enough chaos during 2020 that it produced a threat effect, implying that if Trump was voted in, the country would go to shit. And then it stopped in 2021, funnily enough. It's election year. It's an election year. It will happen again this year, probably. It'll probably start quite soon, actually.